Good morning, Kuhner country. Ho, 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 ho. How the tables have now turned in a very dramatic development, actually, just a couple hours ago. I mean, it really broke last night, but they had to arrange a vote. It took a while. Finally, though, the vote now cleared 60-40. They are on their way to reopening the government. It's still going to take a few more procedural hurdles. It's not going to happen today. It may take a few more days. But in the end, the government shutdown is over. And the Democrats have caved. Make no mistake about it. This is not even just the opinion of the Kuhner man. This is now the reaction from most Democrats, in particular the Bernie Sanders, AOC, Mamdani wing, the far left, so-called progressive wing, the socialist communist wing of the Democratic Party is denouncing this deal as the mother of all betrayals, the mother of all sellouts. And so, here is now exactly the context of what took place. By Friday going into Saturday, the fact that so many air traffic controllers had not been paid, many of them said, we can't work anymore. I mean, we can't. Many of them were doing side jobs, driving Ubers, Lyfts, anything to put food on the table, and many of them just stopped coming to work. And so, with the longest government shutdown in history, 40 days, in fact, it's probably going to be a couple more days before it officially ends. With the longest government shutdown grinding on, thousands and thousands of flights had to be canceled. And people were stuck in airports. Air travel now was basically ground to a halt. And there were a lot of complaints. And people were getting angry. People were getting frustrated. And yes, they were blaming both parties, but they were especially angry at the Democrats. And the question began to be asked, do the Democrats want the planes to fall out of the sky? They voted 14 times to not reopen the government. They voted 14 times to shut the government down. And now it was becoming reckless. It was becoming irresponsible. They were literally now jeopardizing the lives, playing with the lives of people who are traveling in the air. And Thanksgiving is 2 weeks away? Couple weeks away, whatever it may be. So with Thanksgiving around the corner, there was now talk that the shutdown would ruin Thanksgiving. And who would be known as the Grinch who ruined Thanksgiving? Chuck Schumer and the Democrats. And so the pressure built there. Furthermore, even though a judge had ruled that Trump had to spend the rest of the contingency funds for SNAP benefits, there was about $5 billion in that emergency fund, it still wouldn't even cover most of the benefits. It's about $8 to $9 billion to fund it properly every month. So they were only now partially paying people SNAP benefits. By December 1st, there would literally be no money. There's no contingency. There's nothing. There's no money. So faced with the prospect of real hunger for 42 million people on SNAP, on food stamps, the pressure began to build even more. But then something else happened. President Trump decided to apply maximum leverage. Maximum leverage. And throughout the entire 40 days, the reason why the Republicans now have won this shutdown battle, and make no mistake about it, Chuck Schumer's career, I believe, is now finished. And I'm going to get to that in a second. This is a massive blow to Chuck Schumer, and it's a massive blow to the Democrats in general, because they played a game of chicken with Trump, and they blinked. Trump came out with a proposal in which he said, instead of giving, because remember, the entire stated reason for the government shutdown by the Democrats was to extend what's called the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, the insurance premiums, the subsidies, the subsidies, the enhanced subsidies, to permanently extend them for 24 million recipients. They wanted to extend the subsidies and the tax credits. And that's why they shut the government down, because they were going to expire by the end of this year. Trump turned around and said, why are we giving health insurance companies hundreds and hundreds, literally hundreds of billions of dollars to pay them to keep premiums relatively moderate, to keep premiums relatively down? It's incredibly corrupt. It's lining the pockets of the big insurance companies. They're making money hand over fist, and it's providing garbage health care to those on Obamacare. And so Trump said, no, let's take those hundreds of billions of dollars and just give them to everybody who's on Obamacare into their health savings accounts. Create a health savings account. And he said, literally, just give them the money directly. Cut out the middleman. No insurance companies. And then they can get whatever it is, $20,000, $25,000, $30,000. And then they can pay for out-of-pocket costs. They can choose the health care plan that's best for them, the best health care coverage that's best for them. In other words, this would smash Obamacare as we know it. It would end the Affordable Care Act as constructed by Obama and the Democrats, and the insurance companies, that's it, bye-bye, they lose all their cash. It was absolutely genius on the part of Trump. So now, faced with the prospect of a revolt among the American people, should planes fall out of the sky, faced with the prospect now they're going to ruin Thanksgiving, faced with the prospect now that the food stamps will completely run out by December 1st, there'll be nothing left in the emergency fund. And now that they are going to lose Obamacare and that the money will go from their donors, which is the insurance companies, straight to people who can buy the health care coverage, straight to the recipients themselves, the Democrats knew the ball game was over. This thing is over. Trump outmaneuvered them. Trump defeated them. And so Chuck Schumer last night took to the floor. I thought he was going to get a meltdown. At one point, and I'm going to play you the cut, he starts to yell, shout, and scream. But a block of Democrats went to him who were getting complaints from their voters. This was the two senators from New Hampshire, Jeanne Shaheen, Maggie Hassan, senators from Nevada, Angus King, who's an independent but caucuses with the Democrats from Maine, Dick Durbin, the number 2 Democrat, Tim Kaine, a senator from Virginia. 8 of them went to Schumer and said, this thing is over. Our constituents are sick of it. It's starting to hurt our political capital, our popularity. They're starting to blame us. They're blaming the Democrats. It's time now to throw in the towel. And when Schumer heard that now John Thune, the Senate Majority Leader, had the 60 votes necessary to break the filibuster, listen now to Chucky Schumer. He saw the writing on the wall. Roll cut 5, Mike.
Premiums will spike by thousands of dollars a month. Millions will lose insurance. Democrats have sounded the alarm. We have demanded for months to meet with the Republican leadership. But Republican leaders refuse to even discuss the issue, let alone negotiate it. We've asked them to meet in the summer and throughout the shutdown. To this day, Republicans still say no. We asked President Trump to step in and meet with us to deliver lower health care for Americans, and instead, Donald Trump has taken the American people hostage, from cutting off food aid to hungry families and vets and seniors and kids, to manufacturing flight cancellations, to cutting off home heating aid, while he builds a billion-dollar ballroom with gold-plated toilets.
That was a temper tantrum. I mean, most of it is all BS, but that was a temper tantrum. Now, I don't have time to play the next cut. I'm going to play it at the other side of the break. But Schumer's, at one point, he starts banging his fists on the table. And he says, I'm voting no. I'm voting no. And this healthcare crisis is so severe. It's going to go on. Anyway, the point is, he went toe-to-toe with Donald Trump, and he lost. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer, the government shutdown. It's going to take a few days. There's some procedural hurdles and parliamentary gimmicks they got to get through. But in essence, there was a vote late last night, early this morning, 60-40, which has effectively now broken Chuck Schumer's filibuster. 8 Democrats, if you want to be technical, 7 Democrats, 1 independent, Maine's Senator Angus King, who caucuses with the Democrats, broke away from their party, voted with the Republicans to end the shutdown. Now, just to lay it all out for you, this is exactly now what they have agreed to. They are going to pass a continuing resolution, basically a funding bill. It's a stopgap measure that will fund the entire government until January 31st. So everything will be funded until the end of January next year. However, they are going to attach what's called a minibus as opposed to an omnibus. What's a minibus, Jeff, you may ask? It's 3 bills that funds parts of the government for the entire fiscal year. Fiscal year ends October 1st. So these 3 bills will fund their departments all the way until October of next year. So what are they? It's called a permanent funding, not permanent as in forever, but permanent meaning for the whole year. It's going to be for the military housing, the construction of military housing, and, of course, military benefits, pay, veterans, the VA. The legislative branch, I swear to you, they're paying themselves and their staffers. So their staffers are going to be taken care of, for sure, until next October. So they're all getting paid. I swear to God, these weasels. But anyway, let that go. And the big one is the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Now, why, Jeff, why is the USDA so important? Because that's where you get your SNAP benefits from. It comes from the USDA. So, in essence, food stamps will be fully funded until next October. WIC, which helps pregnant women, that will be low-income pregnant women, that will be fully funded until next October. The VA military pay, that will be funded until next October. So that was a kind of sweetener to get some of these Democrats to vote. Now, the Republicans did make 2 small concessions, and this is all the Democrats have. Number 1, and this was primarily to get Tim Kaine's vote. Remember, Kaine is a senator from Virginia. A lot of federal workers live in Northern Virginia, which is right on the border with Washington, D.C., and so the Republicans agreed to reverse all of those federal employees who had been laid off during the shutdown and they want them to be fired. They're going to get their jobs back temporarily. So all these federal workers and employees are going to get their jobs back until January 31st. What happens then, we shall see. So they temporarily get their jobs back with back pay. And Tim Kaine can then go and say it's a win, and that's why he then ended up supporting ending the shutdown. The other thing that Thune gave, and this was a little bone that he gave the Democrats, is that he is going to allow, in fact, he's going to guarantee a vote in the Senate to extend the Obamacare premiums, okay, to the subsidies, to extend the Obamacare subsidies and tax credits. Now, they're going to have a vote. There's no guarantee that Republicans will support it. There's no guarantee that it will pass. Most likely it's going to go down, primarily because part of the problem with it is it provides billions, hundreds of billions in taxpayer funding to illegal aliens. Free health care to illegal aliens. And so that's why I doubt any Republican will support it, because who wants to give free health care to illegals? But the fact is, they will get a vote. They're probably going to lose the vote, but they're going to get the vote. So, and that's going to be by the second week in December. So, that's it. Literally, that's it. So, what did the Republicans give up? This is a 40-day shutdown. The Democrats get a vote to extend the ACA subsidies, but they're most likely not going to pass it. And those that were fired, the federal employees, will get their jobs back temporarily until January 31st. That's it. The funding resolution will fund the government, as I said, through Thanksgiving, through Christmas, all the way until the end of January, January 31st. And the Democrats outside of that get zero. Zero. The Republicans have won the shutdown battle. Schumer now politically knows the end is near. AOC is denouncing this as a sellout. Bernie is denouncing it as a sellout. Most of the left-wing media is denouncing it as a sellout. Okay, Republicans held the line for the most part, and Schumer now has had to throw in the towel. In particular, it was a block of 8 Democrats who then said, no, this has gone on way too long. Enough is enough. Last night, very late last night, they bolted from their party and crossed the aisle, voted with Republicans to effectively end the shutdown. There will be no extension of the Obamacare subsidies. That was the heart and soul of their demands. There will be no free health care for illegals. There will be no circumcisions in Zambia. There will be no gay rights funding in Lithuania or transgender surgeries in Serbia or a bailout for the liberal media like NPR and others that they were also demanding. The Democrats got basically zilch, zero, nada. And so the question now that has to be asked, you put the country through this for 40 days. People got laid off. They temporarily lost their jobs. You threatened people with hunger. You literally weaponized hunger. The massive inconvenience in air travel, where thousands and thousands of flights were either canceled or substantially delayed. And you put us all through this for nothing? Literally, for nothing? Listen now to Chuck Schumer. He heard the news. There were going to be 8 defectors. The filibuster, his filibuster, the Schumer shutdown, was now going to be broken. And he was not a happy man. Roll cut 5A, Mike.
I must vote no. This health care crisis is so severe, so urgent, so devastating for families back home that I cannot in good faith support this CR that fails to address the health care crisis. But let me be clear, however this vote turns out, this fight will and must continue Democrats must fight because of millions of families will lose health care coverage. We must fight because children who are dying of cancer will not get health care coverage. We must fight because a senior citizen cannot afford to pay $25,000 a year just for health insurance. We must fight to keep millions from financial ruin.
Okay. Senior citizens are on Medicare, but let that go. Kids are not going to be dying from cancer. You can tell when they start doing the kids from, dying of cancer routine, it's over. The panic porn, the hysteria, the gaslighting, the fear mongering. What matters now is this, okay? This is now all that matters. Roll cut 10. Mike, this is Bernie, Bolshevik Bernie, sent out a Twitter video ripping the 8 Democrats that voted with the Republicans to end the shutdown. And I'm telling you, even though he's criticizing the 8 Democrats, he's really criticizing Schumer. Schumer wanted this fight. Schumer picked this fight. Schumer guaranteed a victory. And now the Democrats have caved and capitulated. They have surrendered. Roll cut 10, Mike.
Tonight, 8 Democrats voted with the Republicans to allow them to go forward on this continuing resolution. And to my mind, this was a very, very bad vote. What it does, first of all, is it raises health care premiums for over 20 million Americans by doubling, and in some cases tripling or quadrupling. People can't afford that when we are already paying the highest prices in the world for health care. Number 2, it paves the way for 15 million people to be thrown off of Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act. Studies show that will mean that some 50,000 Americans will die every year unnecessarily. And all of that was done to give $1 trillion in tax breaks to the 1%.
There you go. And it's the same shtick with this guy, but the point is they're mad at Schumer. And I'm telling you now, AOC is getting ready to primary him. And you can see it on Schumer's face. He's now a broken, defeated man. And just like Trump chased Pelosi out of Congress, you watch, he's now going to chase Schumer out of Congress. And so, look, this is the dilemma the Democrats had from the beginning with Obamacare. They were the ones who created Obamacare. Remember, it wasn't the Republicans. This was Obama's baby. And what did they say? It would lower premiums. They lied. That it would lower the cost of health insurance. They lied. That if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. That if you like your health care plan, you can keep your health care plan. Well, that was a lie. I lost my doctor. I couldn't keep my health care plan. My premiums didn't go down. They doubled. I'm just giving you me as an example. Okay, I'm just giving myself as an example. Who are the ones that set in the deadline of extending these healthcare, these Obamacare subsidies for December 31st, 2025? It was the Democrats. They were the ones who created Obamacare. They were the ones who created then the enhanced tax credits and subsidies. This was under Biden during the COVID period, where they decided to spend money like drunken sailors. That was all them. They were the ones who set the date of December 31, 2025. So if you're not happy, you have no one else to blame but you. Obamacare has been a disaster. You created it. You put on the enhanced subsidies and tax credits. That was all you under Biden. You set up this arbitrary date that was going to run out December 31st, 2025, because the costs were so massive and big. You couldn't make it, you didn't make it permanent. You gave it a timeline and an end date. So you have no one to blame but yourselves. Now, let me tell you what happened. Trump used maximum leverage. He knew they were weak. He knew they held a weak hand. He knew the American people didn't support their shutdown, which they didn't. And Trump came out along, frankly, with J.D. Vance. And every time John Thune and the Rhino said, let's make a deal. Let's try to make some concessions. Let's see if, let's end this. And the answer from Trump and J.D. was no. Shut up. No. We're winning. Shut up. Hold the line. No means no. No, you're not caving this time. They're caving. And it was the strength of Trump, the strength of J.D. Vance that prevailed over the weakness of the rhinos and the fact that the Democrats had no cards to play. And then Trump brilliantly said, okay, we're going to get rid of all of these hundreds of billions of dollars in subsidies to Obamacare, to these big health insurance companies, and we're going to give them directly to the people themselves, into their own health savings accounts. And they can spend the money. We'll send them a check, and they can spend the money on health insurance how they want. When the Democrats saw that, and when the Democrats saw that people were blaming them for the flight cancellations, the chaos in the air, Thanksgiving now right around the corner, and this would destroy and ruin everyone's Thanksgiving. And then Trump threatened to end the filibuster. In other words, we're going to take it all. We're going to take it all. And that's when the Democrats said, it's time to wave the white flag. This thing is over. They won. We lost. So the question now is this. What do you make of the vote, actually really this morning, I'm going to say late last night, but it was actually this morning, that ends the shutdown? Are you relieved that the government shutdown is over? Do you believe that Trump is the one that really has broken Schumer, broken the Schumer shutdown? And are you happy with what the Republicans achieved? 617-266-6868. No health care for illegals. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, very dramatic developments occurring over the last, not even 24 hours, 12 hours. Effectively now, the Republicans have broken Schumer. The shutdown is effectively over. It may take a couple more days as they wrangle out some of these procedural issues, but in essence, 8 Democrats, again, 7 Democrats, Angus King, the independent from Maine, who caucuses with the Democrats, so 8 in total, defected and went over to the Republicans to vote, to break the filibuster and to pass a continuing resolution that will now fund the government until January, the end of January next year. So the shutdown, it will be over. Federal employees will be brought back to work. Food stamps will continue to go out. In fact, they'll go out for the rest of next year. And there will be no extension, none whatsoever, on Obamacare subsidies and tax credits, which is what the Democrats wanted. There will be no health care, free health care for illegal aliens. Everything that the Democrats wanted, they will not get. They got nothing. So you put the country through hell. And for what? For what? Maybe you ginned up your base for the elections on Tuesday? Maybe. And look, in the end, the damage now to the Democrats is huge. They weaponized hunger. They clearly now were seen as a party that will do absolutely everything and anything for illegal aliens. And I believe now they have put literally the final knife into Chuck Schumer's political career. My question to you, now that Schumer staked his entire reputation on beating Trump and winning the shutdown, and clearly now, in a game of chicken, he blinked. Schumer blinked. Is this now the end of Chuck Schumer? So the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Will Schumer retire, or will he try to win re-election? What say you? Will Schumer retire, or will he try to win re-election? You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn as in National ER. I was very active on X again last night. You can vote via X. My handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, Kuhner. Look, who knows what goes in the mind of a sick, power-hungry man like Chuck Schumer? But if he's smart, he should retire. If he's smart. If he tries to run for re-election, AOC is going to do to him what Mamdani did to Andrew Cuomo. She's going to primary him in New York, and she's going to destroy him. Already now, she, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Ayanna Pressley, I played the cut from Bernie Sanders, Bernie, Elizabeth Warren, in fact, the overwhelming majority of Democrats, the entire left-wing media, and especially the socialist Marxist wing, are denouncing this as a massive betrayal and a massive defeat. This is the white flag of surrender. And in the end, they're going to blame Chucky. And I think AOC now realizes, see, she, no matter what, she was in the driver's seat. If they could get an extension for Obamacare, or let's say a year or whatever, on the premiums, she could claim it was a victory and she pushed Schumer into battle. If Schumer didn't get what they wanted, which he didn't, then she can say, you see, I told you, the guy's a loser, he's too old, he's too establishment, he's too corrupt. We need somebody like me. We need new, vigorous, progressive leadership. And that's exactly now what she's starting to say. So what you're watching now is not just a massive defeat for the Democrats, but really the death spiral of the Democrat old guard. Chuck Schumer is finished. Put a fork in him. 617-266-6868. And as one person put it, Jeff, what you just saw now, this 40-day shutdown, that's the art of the deal. Trump out-leveraged him. Trump outsmarted him. Trump outmaneuvered him. Honestly, Trump broke him. CJ, is it CJT or CJ? Mike?
CJT. Hi.
CJT, okay. CJT in Milton. How are you, CJT?
Good, Jeff. How are you?
Good. After last night, very good, CJT.
Oh, good. No, I'm happy. Okay, before I get to the point, I want to say I'm a big fan of the Kuhner, man. I'm very loyal listener. I was with Trump in 2015 when the real pure conservatives were saying he wasn't conservative enough. So that's a little background. But on this issue, I want to be a little contrary, Jeff, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Okay?
Go ahead, CJT.
All right. Thank you, sir. Up until the morning of November 5th, I'm going to have to say, I'm going to give the edge to the Democrats in this. I'm sorry. But after that, they overplayed their hand, and what seemed to turn the tide was these airline shutdowns, airline cancellations, 1,500 a day. So, they overplayed their hand. I think what Chuck Schumer should have done was actually voted to end this. Sometimes you need to just declare victory and end something. And, I still think there's going to be some type of extension on these subsidies. I'm sorry to say it. They may not extend it forever, But it would not surprise me if they extended until the fall elections in 2026. So, I think our side needs to, not declare that much of a victory in this. I mean, up until November 5th, we were behind the 8 ball, according to all the polls, and the Democrats overplayed their hand. And, that's really it. I mean, Trump is great, but, he won because of former and disaffected Democrats that crossed over to him. Elon Musk brought over a lot of people, RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard. Trump's a former Democrat. Ronald Reagan, former Democrat. I know he's gone, but our side just needs to, a little tough love. That's all I'm saying, Jeff.
Well, look, CJT, look, you may be right. If there's going to be a vote, that's the one concession that Thune gave them. Which is you're going to get a vote. Now, Thune is telling his entire side to vote against it. So technically, from if we talk right now, they don't have the votes. But you may be right. The rhinos always stab us in the back. And so we may get that 1-year extension on these Obamacare subsidies. Now, if they do that, I'm telling you the Republicans are going to lose the midterms. Because what kept them strong wasn't just Trump and J.D. Vance. It was people like you, people like me, honestly, Kuhner country, and MAGA that kept saying, no, this time you're going to win a shutdown battle. No, you're not going to blink first. No, you're not going to capitulate first. This time, they're going to cave. And that's what eventually happened. So, frankly, look, this is the only shutdown in my entire life that I've witnessed, and I'm 56 years old now, CJT, that the Democrats lost. Like, the rhinos always cave. This time, now, many wanted to cave, but Trump wouldn't let them cave. But, okay, it doesn't matter. The fact is now, and that's why Schumer can't believe it. That's why Schumer is stunned. He's like, but they always cave. They're like, what's going on? And I think he underestimated Trump, and I think he also, frankly, underestimated J.D. Vance. Vance, he was very low-key, but he kept sending Vance to the Senate. Vance was basically Trump's guy. As Trump was making deals around the world, it was J.D. that kept going to the Senate talking to Thune. And Thune kept giving him, like, literally, proposal after proposal. Well, let's give Schumer this, or let's give the Democrats this, or let's give them that. And J.D. kept saying, no, listen, no, John, no, the answer is no. So, it was Vance and Trump really fortified the spines of the Republicans. Now, if they give that extension in that vote, if enough Republicans cross over, they're going to lose the midterms. I mean, CJT, I'm just telling you. Look, Obamacare is a disaster. The only way they can keep premiums reasonable, and even then they're high, but reasonable, is to keep spending hundreds of billions of dollars, which they give to the insurance companies, who frankly pocket most of the money. It's incredibly corrupt. The insurance companies are the ones who really win in Obamacare, and they own the Democrats lock, stock, and barrel. That's why the Democrats don't want to end the ACA, the Affordable Care Act. Well, when Trump turned around with this proposal to basically create these flexible savings accounts, saying, no, man, take, what is it, $300 billion we give them? No, take the $300 billion and write every single person who's on Obamacare, write them a check. Don't give it to the insurance companies. Give it straight to the people on Obamacare. Write them a check and say, get the health care that you want. In other words, this would destroy Obamacare. It's repealing and replacing Obamacare without even actually having to vote for it. And I'm telling you, that's when the Democrats said, holy blank, holy Toledo, let's clean it up. Holy Toledo. Guys, it's over. It's over. End this shutdown now. And so we'll see. But look, part of their extending of the Obamacare subsidy, CJT, is to give taxpayer-funded, quote-unquote, free. It's not free. We're paying for it. But free health care to illegal aliens. If the Republicans support that, they're done. I'm just telling you, CJT, they're committing political suicide. So if they know what's good for them, let them have their vote to extend the premiums, let it go down in flames, and then the Democrats' defeat will be complete. If they're smart. But then again, when have the Republicans ever been smart? CJT, I want to give the last word to you. What say you?
Okay, all I can say is, Jeff, two quick things. Thank you for all this excellent insight. Our side, we like our side, but we also need to learn some lessons from this and stay vigilant. And that's it.
Thank you. CJT, thank you very, very much. Look, the Republicans are geniuses at snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. Okay? But look, let's be clear. I'm being serious. This wasn't John Thune who won this standoff. This wasn't the Senate Republicans who won this standoff. This was Trump and Vance. Those are the people that won the standoff. This is Trump's victory. Let's be clear. No, look, I want to bring it back to we'll talk. It's all on the table, obviously. But I just want to ask all of you this one question. You're just an ordinary person out there. You're not very partisan. Okay, maybe you're just an independent or, some elections you vote Republican, some elections you vote Democrat. You're just trying to feed yourself and your family. And you're looking at this now for 40 days. And you say, well, the Democrats shut the entire government down. For what? Like, the Democrats are going to have to answer this question. Because remember, they voted against reopening the government 14 times. I mean, that's just a fact. So you put the country through all of this pain and suffering. You literally weaponized hunger. People had flights canceled. I mean, you want to talk about, chaos in the air. Flights delayed. Hell, airports were closed for 4, 5, 6 hours at a time. I mean, it was pandemonium at many airports. People's lives were really inconvenienced by this. Some people did not get their full SNAP benefits, their full food stamps. I could go on. People lost their jobs. And you're like, for what? What was it all for? To get a vote on extending the ACA subsidies, which looks like you're going to lose? That's it? That's it. Ay, ay, ay. Ay, ay, ay. I'm just saying, ay, ay, ay. See, they're going to demand, heads are going to roll over this. That's another reason why I think Schumer's in big trouble. And maybe even Hakeem Jeffries. I mean, if I'm a rank and file Democrat, I'm like, we just got our clocks cleaned, and what did we get for it? It's time to fire the coach. 617-266-6868. Russ in Boston. Thanks for holding, Russ, and welcome.
Good morning, Kuhner country.
Russ.
We shall overcome.
Buddy, it took a while, but, Trump, fight. And eventually you keep fighting, you win. And that's what Trump did it, baby. He held the line, and he won.
The question is, will mass voters learn anything from the shutdown? Catherine Clark let the cat out of the bag. They did this to gain leverage against Donald Trump, and they lost. And the Democratic Party could care less about how many people suffer. They are definitely not for the working man as they were 50 years ago and before, okay? So all they do is care about power and greed. That's all they care about. Power and greed. Power and greed. But, Jeff, I want to ask all conservatives, please have patience with everything that Donald Trump is doing on the international stage will benefit the U.S. and the survival of the free world, everything that he's doing. We must gain more and more countries as allies to defend ourselves against China and possibly Russia, too. And the more allies that we have, the better off we are, and we can keep the communists at bay.
Oh, I'm with you all the way, Russ. Look, and I think this is now going to be a big feather in his cap. This is now a big victory. It really is. And look, Russ, I think you're right. I think when you saw Kathleen Clark, you know, this is the number 2 Democrat in the House of Representatives. But then there were so many other Democrats who were openly admitting, yeah, we have to cause pain. Yeah, we're going to make families suffer. No question. But that's our only leverage. When they began to leverage and openly admit that they were using people's hunger, people's loss of their livelihoods, people's loss of work, people's fear, people's anxiety, people's fear, their suffering, and they were going to use that as quote-unquote leverage, that really unmasked the Democrats for who and what they are. They don't care about the working class. They don't care about ordinary people. And even on this whole Obamacare, you think they care about people's health insurance? No, what they care about is keeping the hundreds of billions of dollars of taxpayer money flowing to the big insurance companies. In other words, they're donors. And that's one thing that the big, it's all coming out now. The big insurance companies told Schumer, you better make sure that you get this thing extended. That's what we're paying you. So you better deliver. And that's why Schumer went and launched the shutdown. It wasn't for people on, supposedly, children dying of cancer and all the other ridiculous, senior citizens are going to die. No. Your donor said, keep the money flow going, keep that spigot open, or we're not going to give you money anymore. And basically, we'll throw it to AOC. If you won't deliver, she will. So all of this to prevent a primary challenge from the radical left of his party. That's ultimately why they put this whole country through this. And I think most Americans now are realizing it. Russ, as always, thank you very much for that call. Look, really, shameful, disgusting, immoral. I mean, I could go on and on. So, I'll tell you this, though. This is not the Democrats of old. I remember, man, if they had to go a year with a shutdown, they would. This time, they folded, and they folded pretty quickly and decisively. I know it was the longest shutdown in history. But, man, you could see the cracks forming even a couple weeks ago. Because ultimately, they had no cards to play. And Trump called their bluff. And once you call, you're playing poker, and you know the other guy doesn't have the cards. You just call that person's bluff, and it's over. And that's what Trump, and then he just kept putting more in the pot. He just kept loading up the pot. More. Okay, I'm all in. Come on, you want to go all in? Let's go all in. And that's when they said, Chuck, it's over. Fold. Chuck, it's time to fold. Mike, how much time left? All right. I'm going to continue to take your calls. 617-266-6868. Are you happy with the way the Republicans performed during the shutdown?
As everybody knows, just on Tuesday, we had an election all over this country. And what the election showed is that the American people want us to stand up to Trumpism, to his war against working class people, to his authoritarianism. That is what the American people wanted. But tonight, that is not what happened. So we've got to go forward, do the best that we can to try to protect working class people, to make sure that the United States not only does not throw people off of health care, but ends the absurdity of being the only major country on earth that doesn't guarantee health care to all people. We got a lot of work to do. But to be honest with you, tonight was not a good night. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a Bolshevik Bernie. That's Bernie Sanders. He's not happy, as you can tell. It's a bad vote. It's a bad night. He's not happy. AOC's not happy. The squad's not happy. Elizabeth Warren isn't happy. Frankly, I'd say about 80 to 90% of Democrats are not happy. And the liberal media is pulling its hair out. They are mad. They're mad at the 8 Democrats who crossed over to end the shutdown. And ultimately, they're mad at Schumer because Schumer picked a fight and he didn't win. 617-266-6868. 721 now on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. Okay, so let me ask you, in this, really, it was a battle of wills between Trump and Chuck U. Schumer. Did Trump break Schumer? Is Trump the reason why the Schumer shutdown failed? 617-266-6868. Bob in Fall River. Thanks for holding, Bob, and welcome.
Morning. Good morning.
Hi, Bob.
I really do hope that this doesn't affect the fact that I think they should do the filibuster. And let me kind of preface that. Last week, when it started to be said that they should do the filibuster, I was against it. I think that tradition is important. I do think that the Senate is a more deliberative idea. But when Trump said we can get voter registration passed, it started to click in my head. You know, they have been like kind of leveraging just that small number. I mean, you just saw it for 40 days. They held, and like you said, and I agree, they got nothing out of it. However, right, you can start to pass stuff which would make it virtually impossible, even in blue states, for Democrats to win, right? Because if you take away that advantage of, like I think you've said it numerous times, like we don't even actually know the number of illegals and also people who shouldn't be, dead people, voting. To have a voter ID would be so substantial. So I really hope that, yes, this got settled, but I really think that the filibuster should actually now be turned around, because I wasn't looking at it from that perspective. But once you do, you can see a lot of different things can get done within a year's time too. Like if he were to get voter ID approved, like say in January, it would be on the rolls for November. So I do feel that they need to go further now, because this can't happen. Say in March, it comes up for another CR, they can do this again. So I think that kind of has to be the way to go now. And you could even do stuff. To me, the idea of, and I don't know how realistic this is, but get rid of this month-long voting process. I mean, I would imagine at state levels you couldn't do it, but for federal office, I'm certain that, you shouldn't have, a month before, oh, yeah, I can just go walk in and vote. I'm certain there should be exceptions, but it should not be the mandate that,
Bob, I don't want to get you're right. Look, you're right, but I don't want to get lost on these side points. I want to drill down to your main point. And, Bob, I don't know if you and I were separated at birth, or you're just a brother from another mother. I don't know what it is. But I was on Newsmax yesterday morning, and this is what I said on Newsmax. And I also said it in my post on X yesterday as well. Up until about 10 days ago, and we even had this discussion, and I'm reversing myself, and I'll explain why. I said, no, don't get rid of the filibuster. Exactly for the reasons you pointed out. Not just because it's tradition. Yes, that's part of it. But I always said, look, it's the ultimate check and balance on the Democrats, right? You're not going to be in power forever. So say an AOC becomes president, or a Bernie, or whoever, a Mamdani. If the Democrats control the presidency and the House and the Senate. I said, if we don't have that filibuster, you're going to get a packed Supreme Court. They're going to end the Electoral College. They're going to admit Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. as states. In other words, they're going to implement policies, they're going to ram it through that will give the Democrats a permanent majority, and they will then impose communism and destroy America. And so I always said, no, you got to keep the filibuster. You have to keep the filibuster. I'm with Donald Trump now. I think it's time to end the filibuster. And I'll tell you why. Exactly to your point. Tuesday's election, I think, was a watershed. Bernie Sanders has openly said, we get back power, we're nuking the filibuster. The Democrats have openly said, we get back power, we're going to nuke the filibuster. Mamdani and part of his revolution with AOC and others, they go, no. The filibuster, that's gone. So as Trump is saying, don't be stupid. Don't bring a knife to a gunfight. The filibuster is going to be ended. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, just very, very quickly, because I do want to talk about this in greater length later in the show. But the Kuhner man has changed his mind. And it's not that there's anything wrong with saying we should uphold the filibuster. It was my position up until 10 days ago. I think it's a very reasonable, logical, respectable position. There's no question. But the Democrats have changed. And I think Trump is right. They're determined now they're going to end the filibuster. If ever they take back power, and eventually they will, they're going to end the filibuster. So, the expression, don't bring a knife to a gunfight. What is clear, this is the Democrat strategy. Eat up time. Shut the government down for 40 days, nothing can get done. Now we're going to have Thanksgiving, then we're going to head into Christmas. By the time it's over, it's already, January of next year. That's 11 months until the midterms. If you need to, shut the government down again if they don't reach a deal by January 31st. So what I'm saying is, eat up clock, extend time, stretch the Trump presidency out, then you get to the midterms. The Democrats are planning to take back the House. Then they impeach Trump again and again. They defund him. And before you know it, the Trump presidency is over. And there are many, many establishment Republicans who secretly, privately agree with that strategy because they believe they can put the genie back in the bottle. And, that Trump was just an exception, an aberration, that the establishment, the globalists that used to run the Republican Party will come back and everything will be back to normal in the swamp. So Trump is arguing, and he's right, you've got to end the filibuster now. Because if we don't, the Democrats will come back to power. And then they will nuke the filibuster, invoke the so-called nuclear option, and get rid of the filibuster. And then everything will be 50+1. And he goes, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to pack the Supreme Court. They're going to add Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. as states, giving them 4 extra votes in the Senate. They're going to end the Electoral College. They're going to give amnesty to illegal aliens. You go down the list. He goes, they're going to make themselves a permanent one-party majority. So he's like, the Republicans are being absolutely foolish. Those are his words, not mine. Saying, now is the time to strike before it's too late. And he says, if we nuke the filibuster, we can never have another government shutdown again as long as we're in control. But more than that, we can pass the entire MAGA agenda. voter ID laws. We can end mail-in balloting. We can really then ramp up deportations and really secure that border. We can end election fraud once and for all. We can completely wipe out illegal aliens getting any kind of welfare or health care benefits, which would be a massive push, impetus for them to self-deport. In other words, we can solve most of the country's problems, and we could do it within a year and make it almost impossible for Democrats to cheat in future elections. In fact, listen now to President Trump. This was, I believe, in a back and forth with reporters, and he said, look, it was Friday, just Friday, and he's saying, look, on the filibuster, saying it's no longer a question of whether it's going to go. It's going to go. The only question is, who's going to nuke it first? Us or the Democrats? Let's not play defense. Let's play offense. Roll cut 4, Mike.
If we terminate the filibuster, the country will be open within 10 minutes after that termination, because we'll take a second vote, which is the opening of the country, and the Republicans will vote to open the country. It'll take 10 minutes, and the country will be open. Mr. President.
Is there any room for bipartisanship? Because it seems like that's the main purpose of the filibuster, is to create some sort of compromise.
Well, it didn't work, obviously.
So
You're right. That was the purpose of the filibuster, bipartisanship, but that didn't work.
So are you saying the next 3 years in Washington there shouldn't be?
Well, no. If the filibuster is terminated, we will have the most productive 3 years in the history of our country. If the filibuster is not terminated, then we will be in a slog with the Democrats, and very little for either party will be done.
He's right. Paralysis. And then eventually the Democrats may one day come back to power. And then, believe me, they'll terminate that filibuster so fast your head is going to spin. And then we're done. America's finished. They will destroy America. So Trump is basically saying, look, do you want to win or do you not want to win? I mean, that's the question now. And so, I was always for the filibuster. But Tuesday changed me. Last Tuesday. And it wasn't just the election of Mamdani, although that to me is clearly a watershed. Jay Jones, you stand behind and vote for a man who literally openly fantasizes repeatedly about murdering Republicans and watching their children die in the arms of their mother? I'm like, look, if they're willing to accept homicide, the murder of their political opponents, if they're willing to vote an Islamo-communist into power. By the way, it's come out now, Mamdani is an open admirer of Vladimir Lenin. Lenin. You think they're going to keep the filibuster? Yeah, right. In fact, and Trump was the one again who made this point. He said, the Democrats voted the last time to end the filibuster. They're on record. You don't have to even speculate what they're going to do. And there were 2 Democrats that defected, and it was those 2 Democrats that kept the filibuster, because the Republicans all voted to keep the filibuster. So which 2 Democrats voted against the filibuster? It was Kyrsten Sinema, Arizona, and Joe Manchin, West Virginia. Well, guess what? Manchin is gone, retired. Sinema is gone, retired. In other words, they get back in. The 2 people that voted against nuking the filibuster are no longer there. They're going to terminate the filibuster. So why are we going to be stupid? We know they're going to cheat. We know they're going to use mail-in balloting, ballot harvesting, have illegals vote, don't require any voter ID. This is beyond suicidal. And so that's why I'm being honest with you. I've changed my mind. Not that I want to change my mind, but I'm sorry. We have no choice. We have to recognize reality. We have to recognize who and what the current Democratic Party is. And as Trump put it, it's now dominated by crazed, lunatic leftists. They're unhinged. They're crazy. They're Marxist. They're radical. They're revolutionary. They're a communist party. They don't care about any tradition. And certainly they don't care about the filibuster. Now, Bernie even said, we keep the filibuster for now because we use it against Trump and the Republicans. But then when the party says we have to change opinion, then we change. So it's obvious. The filibuster is a tool to stop Trump. That's it. And when they get power back, then they're going to end that filibuster and they're going to ram socialism and communism right down our throats. And you will never recognize the United States again. So it doesn't matter that this filibuster is now over. It doesn't matter that this shutdown is now over. Remember, this only keeps funding the government open until the end of January. They could filibuster again and shut the government down at the end of January again and drag this thing into February and March just to keep blocking and paralyzing and obstructing Trump. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let's throw this mother log on the fire. I mean, what the hell? Go big or go home. So Trump victorious now. The shutdown is going to be over the next couple of days. 8 Democrats have now bolted from Schumer, from their from Democrats. These 8 Democrats now have voted with Republicans to end the filibuster. The shutdown will now be over. They will fund the government until the end of January. And the Democrats got nothing. They did not even get a 1-year extension on the subsidies for Obamacare. No free health care for illegals. They couldn't even get circumcisions for Zambia. They got nothing. Absolutely nothing. No bailout for NPR. No bailout for the liberal media. No bailout for PBS. Zilch, nada, nothing. The filibuster. Is it time to end it? And should the Republicans be the one to terminate it? This is from a good friend of mine, Rick, texted me on my personal phone. Jeff, yes, I agree. Do it now, before Thanksgiving. The Democrats have never been bipartisan. In a world where people all play by the same rules, the filibuster is a noble idea and sharing bipartisan support. However, that's not where we are now. And Rick goes on. It's a bit of a long text, but basically you're dealing now with people who abuse the system for their own benefit. And they want to undermine our country and eventually infiltrate our government and destroy it. And so why would you give them that power over Republicans when we know that the moment they get power, they're going to end and terminate the filibuster and literally destroy the United States? Let's end the filibuster, put in voter ID laws, end mail-in balloting, restore integrity to our elections, and pass the entire MAGA agenda. Save our country before the Democrats steal it. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. All right, let's go to the blazing phone lines. Maestro Mike, who do you want me to go to first? Maggie in Amesbury. Thanks for holding, Maggie, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Maggie.
I am a registered independent, but that Trump never ceases to amaze me. I mean, kudos to him. And I'm with you. I changed my mind about the filibuster for a couple reasons, many of which you already said. I would like to add a couple things, Jeff. If they do end it and can get through legislation, let's put a legislative package together that prevents a government shutdown in the future. I mean, to me, my anger was like, wait a minute, Congressman, and woman, you work for us. This is our taxpayer money that you're messing around with. Enough is enough. There must be something we can put together if we can end the filibuster and get it passed. You could do a couple things that force negotiation. You could add some sanctions on to congressmen and women should they vote for a government shutdown in the future. You can put some things in place that enforce that certain parts of the government maintain getting money so that those important parts can continue even if they can't decide on a budget. I mean, there's some creative things you can do to create this crap from both sides of the aisle. It's not okay to the American people to say, hey, we're not going to work, and we're not going to give you the money that you guys have paid in taxes. No, that's not okay. And another thing that they might do if they end the filibuster now is reassess in 3 years. You know what? Put it back in while you can before the next election. I mean, if they had to. But I agree with you, as I said, on the reasons that you laid out for the filibuster. But, Jeff, we have to work on something so that it doesn't happen again. They're playing games with our money. They're playing games with our lives. And sometimes it's both sides of the aisle. In this case, it was the Democrats. And thank God we have Trump in power, quite frankly. But anyway, those are my thoughts. What do you think about that?
Maggie, look, I like them. I really do. And look, one of the things, to me, this is what they call a layup. This is a no-brainer, which is, you know, all these lawmakers, all these politicians, members of Congress, the government is shut down. They're all getting paid. They're all getting paid. Their salaries are being paid. So let me get this straight. Air traffic controllers are not being paid. Our military, people in our military, now Trump raised private money. He got private donations to fund, you know, the checks of our military. But, I mean, this is pathetic. We're the United States of America. We got to rely on charity to pay the members of our military during a shutdown? It's outrageous. So, you know, the military, they don't get paid. I mean, through the government when there's a shutdown. So no checks for them, no government checks. The air traffic controllers, look, air traffic controller is a very stressful job. I mean, you got all these planes in the sky at the same time. You make one mistake. We saw that in that terrible plane accident in Reagan Airport in D.C. You lose concentration, you make a mistake, and literally hundreds of people are dead. It's a high-stress job, very high burnout. They work very long hours. They're not getting paid. But you, the senator or the member of Congress who voted for this shutdown, you're getting paid? To me, it's sickening. It's outrageous. So at a bare minimum, they shouldn't get paid. I think, moreover, it's illegal. Like, every other government on the face of the earth, I've never heard of this. No other country. The only time you hear about a quote-unquote government shutdown is in a kind of banana republic where the government just goes, kaput. Like, it's bankrupt. Like, that's it. It's bankrupt. Like, there's just no money. So parliament is disbanded. The military, literally, there's a military coup. The military has to take over the country to preserve basic order. And then they got to find a way to pay their creditors. But I mean, outside of an absolute national bankruptcy, I've never heard of a government shutdown. Ever. I mean, that's your most basic function. Pass a budget every year. We're not asking for the sky. That's your job. So if they can't do their basic job, then, either sanction them or it automatically leads to them losing their seat, or they pay a massive fine, or they go to jail. I mean, however you want to do this, but there should be a law on the books that a government shutdown is illegal. Period. Now, you want to say you can't reach an agreement on something. Fine. Pass a continuing resolution, a stopgap funding measure, which funds the government at the current level, and pass it for 4 weeks or 6 weeks, and you continue to negotiate. But what you don't do is what the Democrats did. In this case, sometimes it's the Republicans, you're right. But in this case, it was the Democrats. Schumer. Really, this was all Schumer. You mean just shut the whole damn thing down? Yeah. And throw the country into crisis and chaos? Yeah. So, no, let me tell you a big reason why the Democrats folded. It wasn't just anymore that flights were being canceled. They didn't care. That people are being massively inconvenienced. And by the way, this isn't just, vacations, which is bad enough, but business trips, people having to go on business. People fly all the time, for business purposes. This was really starting to impact the economy. The fear now was that more and more air traffic controllers were not showing up at work because they hadn't been paid in a month. And they said, look, I can't do it anymore. I just can't. So there were less and less air traffic controllers at these airports, to the point that people were saying planes are going to collide in the middle of the air, in the sky. You're going to see planes falling out of the sky. Do you understand? So it got to such a dire situation that they finally said, what are we doing? No, it's over. No, Chuck, it's over. And this is the part, Maggie, that to me turns my stomach. If we were talking about, I don't know, we're about to invade a country, it's a war, and the president won't take it to Congress for a vote. I'm just giving you an imaginary scenario, hypothetical. And they say, no, well, we're going to shut the government down because, my God, if we're going to go to war with China, if we're going to go to war with Russia, this could be a nuclear war. Damn it, Congress should vote. So it's not as if some big issue was at stake where you would say, look, they had no choice. I mean, this is of such magnitude and such importance. They shut the government down because Schumer feared a primary challenge from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Because the radical left wing of the Democrat Party said you have to stop Trump, stand up to Trump, burn him down. Because if you don't burn him down, Chuck, we're going to burn you down in a primary. And so, to save his political rear end, Chuck Schumer threw the entire country into anarchy and chaos, literally putting people on the verge of going hungry and planes falling out of the sky. And after 40 days of this, the suffering by millions of Americans, which on tape, Democrats were caught saying, it's the only leverage we have. I'm sorry, these people are suffering, but they're too bad. They cave, they surrender for nothing, and they got nothing. So all of this was for nothing. And now, because he's so stupid, now he's guaranteed a primary challenge from AOC, and I'm telling you, she is going to destroy Schumer the way Mamdani destroyed Cuomo. Last night, the reason why Chuck, he was on the verge of tears. I mean, I played some of the cuts. You should have seen him. Face red. I thought he was going to cry. And it's not just because this is a personal humiliating defeat for the Chuckster, but because he knows this is now his political obituary. Trump just buried him. And AOC is going to be the shovel that does it. Final word to you, Maggie.
I agree, Jeff. And you know what? Go Trump, but use this time to make sure this never happens again. And I hope J.D. Vance follows Trump. He will be phenomenal.
I agree. I truly agree. Maggie, thank you very much for that call. I really appreciate it. Mark in Medford. Mark, thanks for holding and welcome.
Jeff, while people are starving, Trump is building a ballroom with gold-plated toilets. You see what they go to, Jeff? This is what they do every time they lose. They always bring up a lie, because he knows full well, Jeff, that the government or the taxpayers did not put a single red cent into that ballroom. But yet, he's going to keep up with the lies, and they're going to keep saying it. It gets so... They're so predictable now. And if they were dead serious, they wouldn't have caved. They did all of this because of the hatred of one man. End of story. And guess what? That one man just kicked your ass.
Mark, you make a very good point. If it really was about kids not getting treatment for cancer, elderly people dying because they can't get medical care, you're right. If you just take their rhetoric at its word, then you wouldn't cave. I mean, Mark, honestly, if kids are dying because they're not getting cancer treatment, if the elderly are just, at home and neglected and they're just dropping dead because nobody's getting health care, would you cave, Mark? I wouldn't cave. Would you?
It's like when there was threats of the shutdown before it happened, right away they said, oh, my God, you're not going to get your Social Security. You're not going to get this. You're not going to... That didn't stop. They just fearmonger. They scare everybody into hating Donald Trump. After this, the people should realize that the Democrats are nothing but full of you-know-what.
Mark, the fact now that the Democrats have waved the white flag of surrender, what do you think the implications are going forward for Trump, for the Republicans, and for the Democrats? What's the political fallout, in other words, Mark?
I think a lot more people now will realize that Donald Trump wants to do nothing but help this country, save this country, and help the people that live in this country legally. And for the Democrats, I think this is going to be the collapse of the entire Democratic Party. No one is ever going to trust these people again. No one is ever going to believe anything that comes out of their mouths ever again.
Mark, thank you very much for that call. Rick in the great state of Tennessee. Thanks for holding, Rick, and welcome.
When I heard Schumer talking about kids with cancer, all I could remember was when Donald Trump was addressing a joint session of Congress, and he appointed a little 13-year-old to the Secret Service that was suffering from cancer. Not a Democrat stood up and clapped. They couldn't even do that. Now all of a sudden they're worried about that.
Oh, that's a great point. Oh, Rick, honestly, touché, as they say. Touché. Rick, are you surprised? Because the Democrats never cave, these shutdown battles, like ever. They caved. A, are you shocked that they surrendered? And B, are you surprised, unbelievably, that the Republicans held the line? What say you, Rick? Is this, in other words, are we watching now the rise of a new Republican Party? A Trump party, a MAGA party, a party now that's willing to fight and go to the brink? I'm just curious. What say you?
I think we are, because normally they cave. And what's his name? Scott Benson was on with Stephanopoulos the other day, and he said, he brought up the fact that when they had a shutdown during Clinton, and Stephanopoulos called the Republicans terrorists when they shut down the government.
George, the best way to do it, and look, you were involved in a lot of these in the 90s, and you basically called the Republicans terrorists, and you said that it is not the responsible party that keeps the government closed. And so what we need is 5 brave, moderate Democratic senators to cross the aisle, because right now it is 52 to 3 5 Democrats can cross the aisle and reopen the government. That's the best way to do it, George.
I can disagree with you about the history there, but we don't need a history lesson right now.
George, let's talk about
what's happening right now.
If you want, I've got all your quotes here. I've got all your quotes here, George.
I'm sure you do.
But
let's talk about the situation right now.
Read your book. So you got one purchase on Amazon this week, and that's very much what you said.
No, it's true. They were calling Republicans terrorists. And there's, by the way, Rick, to show you the hypocrisy of these people in the media, it's like, oh, the Republicans, how dare they not give health care, Obamacare extensions on the subsidies, and the Democrats are doing the right thing and shutting the government down. But when you were the press secretary, the press hack for Bill Clinton, and the Republicans shut the government down, you said any party that shuts the government down are a bunch of terrorists. So they're not now they're not terrorists now, Georgie? Hey, Stephanopoulos? No. Bessent humiliated and exposed him for the hack that he is. And Rick, I got to tell you, you look at the liberal media response. The New York Times, the Washington Post, the Atlantic, this is CNN, MSNBC, they are flailing the Democrats. They are roasting. They're eviscerating the Democrats. So Trump won just by the reaction of the other side. Rick, final word to you, my friend.
Trump's got some great fighters in that cabinet, boy. I'll tell you, that 4 years off gave him a lot of time to really arm up and do some homework on these people that he's got on his team. And you know what? I'm for abolishing the filibuster because that the Democrats are going to do it.
I'm with you. No, I'm with you.
You got to go on offense.
I agree with you. Not 100, 1,000%. Rick, thank you very much for that call. Notice the other thing that's changed. The second term versus the first term. Yes, the quality of the cabinet members, the personnel is better, much better, in fact. But notice now, I don't care if it's J.D. Vance, I don't care if it's Rubio, I don't care if it's Scott Bessent, I don't care if it's Tulsi Gabbard, I don't care if it's RFK. I don't want to list the whole cabinet, but when they do media interviews with the fake news, now they're not a punching bag. Now, if you notice, they hit back and hit back and hit back. And you can see it now. They keep delivering blow after blow after blow. They are fighting back, not just against the Democrats, but they're fighting back against the fake news. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, everything is on the table this morning. Chuck Schumer now livid. 8 Democrats, to be technical, 7 Democrats, 1 independent, Senator Angus King from Maine, who caucuses with the Democrats. So 8 in total have now bolted. They have defected, and they voted with the Republicans late last night into early this morning to end the filibuster, effectively ending the shutdown. It will take a few more days for the government to technically reopen, but in essence now, the shutdown is over. They will pass a continuing resolution that will fund the entire government until January 31st of next year. And they're going to pass, it looks like, what are called a minibus, not an omnibus, but a minibus, 3 funding bills, 1 that will pay the military and military construction and Veterans Affairs, 2 the legislative branch, so all these staffers and aides, all these people in Congress, yep, they're going to take care of their own people. They're all going to get paid all of next year. And the United States Department of Agriculture, why? Because that's where the food stamps come from. That's the SNAP comes from the USDA. So SNAP, WIC, all of these programs will be fully funded until October of next year. That's the fiscal year. It's October 1st in Congress. That's how they do the fiscal year, October to October. So it will, all these 3 will be funded all the way until October of next year. No extensions on the Obamacare subsidies. Nothing. No free health care for illegals. Nothing. No circumcisions, as I said, in Zambia, or gay rights in the Baltic states, or transgender surgeries in Serbia. No massive liberal media bailout. They wanted $12 billion for failing liberal outlets that are losing money, like NPR, PBS, and others. Nothing, nada, zero. The only thing they got was that John Thune will give them a vote, just a vote, on extending the ACA subsidies, the Affordable Care Act, sometime before the second week of December. But the Republicans say they will not vote for it, meaning it's going to go down. So, in essence, the Democrats held the American people hostage. They shut the government down for 40 days. They imposed immense pain, suffering, and misery upon the entire country. And in the end, it was all for nothing. They got nothing, and the result was a complete and utter failure and a complete and utter defeat. Dan in Plymouth. Thanks for holding, Dan, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, I'm going to throw another log on the fire.
Yes,
you may
go ahead.
disagree or disagree, but I totally agree with you. This was a total capitulation by the Democrats to President Trump. But what remains is the high price and cost of private health insurance. You see it. I'm sure you see it in your pay stub. I pay over $400 every 2 weeks for two adults and a young buck, my son, who just graduated college. And you have copays, you got deductibles. The only thing I get for free is a colonoscopy, ironically enough. So I think what President Trump must do is, in my opinion, get the risk pool of health insurance. The older you are, the higher the risk. Perhaps expand Medicare to the generation that elected him. It was our generation, Jeff, Generation X, that elected Trump in 2024. Expand it to probably 55 years of age. Get that risk pool out of the private health insurance. And I think that would cement his legacy and perhaps stop the Democrats from taking over next year.
Wow, I didn't even think of that. I didn't even think of that. That is very, very interesting. Dan, let me ask you this. What do you think of Trump's proposal? It's actually Senator from Louisiana, Bill Cassidy, who's a physician or whatever, was a physician. This is really ultimately his original idea. He's the brainchild of it. But Trump loves it. He's jumped all over it. And there are even some Democrats now who say, you know what? I may be willing to take a look at this, which is the $300 billion, which is an unbelievable amount of money, that Obamacare is shoveling to these big insurance companies to keep these premiums, relatively reasonable. That Trump is saying it's a massive payoff. They're stealing a lot of the money. It's providing garbage health care. It's the most inefficient way to fund a healthcare system ever. He says, cut out the middleman completely. Take the $300 billion and literally give people who are on Obamacare a check, a direct check right to their health savings account. And it's going to be, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And you get the healthcare plan that's best for you and your family. What say you?
Jeff, I thought of that. I like anything that mixes up, changes the system. My only fear is the people that get that money, and you got to trust people. I understand that. They may not use those funds for health care, and then you and I, the responsible ones, are going to be flipping the bill, paying the bill when we go to the hospital because our insurance is going to be paying for their non-coverage.
That's another good point. Yeah, they would have to provide safeguards that the money can only be used, for health care. Or 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I know we've talked about it a little bit in the last hour, and it's not technically the poll question of the day. The poll question is about Chuck Schumer And do you think he's now going to retire and basically to avoid a primary and a crushing defeat by AOC, Alexandria Fidel Castro Cortez? Or do you think he's going to try and run for re-election? And good luck. But we did a poll question a couple weeks ago on the filibuster. And should we end the filibuster? And most of you in this great audience, and like me at the time, said, no, we shouldn't end it. Why? Well, we're going to need it when the Democrats come back to power one day. After Tuesday's election, after now what we've seen the Democrats, what they're capable of, what they truly want to do, after this punishing 40-day shutdown, is Trump right? Is it time to terminate the filibuster? And so I want to ask all of you in Kuhner country, whether you're for keeping the filibuster or you're for nuking the filibuster. I want to hear from you. Tell me why you believe we should either keep it or kill it. 617-266-6868 is the number. You can also text the Kuhner Man, 70470, 70470. This is from 617. Jeff, there is no question the Democrats caved on the shutdown. And this is a big victory for President Trump and a crushing defeat for Chuck Schumer. But the question I have, Jeff, is a simple one. The Dems could have done this deal 35 days ago. In other words, this was purely political. They hurt people for nothing other than politics. I can't disagree. You're completely right. In fact, you're 1,000, not 100. You're 1,000% correct. That's the question the country's going to be asking. This deal could have been done. What, 35 days? You could have done this deal 40 days ago. It's a 40-day shutdown. You could have done this deal 40 days ago, 39 days ago. So in the end, this was all political. So you put us through this suffering and misery for nothing? For cheap politics? To pander to the radical left-wing base of your party? Ay, ay, ay. Seriously, ay, ay, ay. Jim in the state of Illinois. Thanks for holding, Jim, and welcome.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jim.
I just wanted to say, go ahead. I mean, in the filibuster, by all means. But we have to realize the power that we would be giving to the rhinos.
You're saying if we end the filibuster?
With our thin margin, the number of votes that we have, it would take just a handful of rhinos to do what rhinos do,
Well, Jim, look, that's an excellent point. Let me ask you this. But they already do what they do, right? In other words, like they already sabotage us. At least, I'm just saying from just as Trump's argument, and you tell me what you say, at least now we don't have to reach 60. We don't give that power to the Democrats. So, yeah, we got to still deal with these treacherous Judas rhinos. Jim in Illinois, you're right. But at least now, if I want to get something done, I just need 50 plus 1. I don't need 60. And on 50 plus 1, Trump thinks I can get you the voter ID national law. We can end mail-in balloting. We can end, as he put it, finally end men in women's sports and women locker rooms. He ran down the whole list. We can clean up our elections. We can really start doing mass deportations with almost no resistance from judges. We can have, legislation backed by Congress. In other words, he says we can fix all of the problems in the country and enact a MAGA agenda and clean up our corrupt elections and end voter fraud. Because if we don't, the Democrats will come back, and then, Jim, they will end that filibuster, And unlike the rhinos, they are thick as thieves. And before you know it, the Supreme Court will be packed, Jim. You're going to have new states like Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. You're going to have the end to the Electoral College. You're going to have amnesty for illegal aliens. And God knows what else these people are going to conceive. Probably socialized medicine. In other words, basically Trump is saying either we end the filibuster or they end the filibuster. If we end it, at least we have a chance at cleaning up the country's problems and keeping the Democrats at bay. Prevent them from stealing future elections. If we wait, then we know they're going to end it, and then they're going to steal elections forever. What say you, Jim?
Exactly, end it. I said do it, from day one almost. But I'm saying we absolutely need to find a way to deal with Collins and Murkowski and, Ryan Paul, and of course McConnell's not long in the tooth, but he's gone in a couple of years, I think. But that's enough to really throw a wrench into everything, unless we find a way to deal with them.
Jim, do you have any suggestions on how to deal with them?
Yeah, open their folders and audit them, and give them something to think about.
In other words, Jim, do it the Chicago way. Jim, thank you very much for that call. I appreciate it. No, look, that's the Achilles heel of the Republican Party. That it's the rhinos. There's no question. And Trump has been complaining about this day one. He complained about it his entire first term. And ever since he got into office, he's like, boy, they love to stab their own. It's like they live to stab their own, these rhinos. Derek in Brighton. Thanks for holding, Derek, and welcome.
Love your show.
Thank you, Derek.
My question is you were saying earlier, if you get rid of this nuclear option, this filibuster, if Trump gets rid of it, he can accomplish what he needs to accomplish in the short time he has, which is a little under, 38 months, to clean up voter ID and do all these other things. But if he gets rid of it and the Democrats get back in power, and you said eventually they will, aren't they going to do exactly what you said they're going to do? They want to make Puerto Rico and Washington the 51st and 52nd state. They want to, and then they'll have 4 more U.S. senators that have a permanent majority to the Republicans' 50, so they can get rid of the, electoral college and go by popular vote and not give the other states a say in who they want to elect for president. Give illegal aliens, make them citizen, you give them citizenship. How is that going to help the Republicans if Trump wants to get rid of that nuclear option? Isn't it going to have the opposite effect?
Well, you're right. In a sense, there is a risk in the sense that now that Trump, the Republicans will do it, then the Democrats, when they come back to power, will say, hey, don't look at us. You Republicans made the new rules. It's no longer 60 votes that's needed to pass these big pieces of legislation. It's 50 plus 1. 617-266-6868 is the number. You can also text us 70470, 70470. Okay, I want to go right back to Derek in Brighton. Look, Derek makes a very, very good point, which is, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, Derek, but essentially your argument is, look, if the Republicans blow up the filibuster, if they end the filibuster, as Trump is calling for, well, the next time the Democrats come to power, you've just laid the groundwork for them to come in and do everything you're warning they're going to do, which is all they need is 50 votes plus 1, pack the Supreme Court, abolish the Electoral College, add Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. as states, give amnesty to illegal aliens, ram down socialized medicine, national government-run health care down our throats, and instead of needing 60 votes, which is what they needed in the past, now all they need is 50 and the vice president as the tie-breaking vote. So in a sense, you're almost giving the Democrats the rope to hang the country with by blowing up the filibuster. Now, you're right. It's a risk. There's no question it's a risk, Derek. The counter argument that Trump is making, and by the way, just so that you know, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think the filibuster is going to end. It's not going to be terminated. The Senate Majority Leader John Thune has said it's not going to happen under his watch. He says he will defend the right of the filibuster to the end. There are other Republicans who say no, absolutely not. We are not going to blow up the filibuster. So right now, the Republicans don't have the votes to do it. They don't have 51 votes to do it. So this whole conversation technically could be moot. But Trump's counter argument is this. When the last time the Democrats were in control of the Senate, they actually voted on a bill that would end the filibuster, the so-called invoke the nuclear option. They would have passed it, except that 2 Democrats voted against it. It was Joe Manchin, a moderate from West Virginia, and Kyrsten Sinema, another moderate from Arizona. Otherwise, the Democrats would have ended the filibuster. Manchin and Sinema are now gone. And so they're going to have the votes to end the filibuster the next time. Furthermore, Bernie, Elizabeth Warren, Schumer in private, AOC, the congressional Democrats have now, they're telling their supporters, the filibuster's coming down. These idiot Republicans, they may hang on to it, and we're going to use it to block Trump as best as we can. But the moment we get back power, we're going to end the filibuster. In fact, they say it's the first thing they're going to do. So Trump's argument is it's going down. It's going down. It's dead. Let's get in front of it. We can be the ones who can be proactive and end the filibuster. And the key is to clean up the elections. And, it's not just voter ID, which is important. They want to end mail-in balloting. You get rid of mail-in balloting, plus ending all welfare, health care, federal benefits to illegals. Trump says, I don't see how the Democrats win an election in the near future. So if we end voter fraud, how do the Democrats win? So Trump's argument is, for the survival, of the Republican Party, but more importantly, for the survival of the country, we have to end the filibuster. It's going to go no matter what. Better us than them. Now, Thune's argument, just so that you know, there was a counter-argument to Trump's counter-argument. Thune says, well, then let the Democrats do it. I don't want the Republicans to be stained with this. In other words, if they're going to go invoke the nuclear option, let it be on the Democrats' hands, not our hands. And Trump just thinks Thune is being naive. Well, okay, I mean, they can have their hands dirty, but in the end, they're going to ram everything down our throats, and it'll then be too late to stop them. So that's where we are right now. Derek, final word to you. Go.
So it's damned if you do and damned if you don't, then I guess, right, Jeff? I mean,
that's what it is. It's political war. I mean, Derek, what you're seeing now, this is a political civil war. And now they're taking casualties. That's what it is. No more bipartisanship. No more room for independence. No more room for good faith and, checks and balances and the system that we used to have. Now it's survival of the fittest. who wins, our side, their side. That's what it's now come down to. It's political trench warfare.
What about the midterms, Jeff? How does it look for the Republicans in the midterms? I mean, do you think they have a good chance now, or?
Well, if the economy picks up, I think they're going to hold on to the House. And I got to say, look, what changed for me, Derek, because I was in the filibuster camp. I always said, you got to have the filibuster. It's the ultimate check and balance, especially on socialism, on the Democrats. But when I saw that they elected Mamdani, and and I saw how radical and revolutionary they've now become, and Mamdani right away said, we're getting rid of that filibuster. Oh, we're getting rid, we're going to pack the Supreme Court. We're going to end America as we've known it. When I saw how extreme and radical the Democrats have become, I said, no, you've got to get rid of the filibuster. You got to do it now. You have about a year to save the country. Because what scares me is this, Derek. Mamdani won the foreign vote in New York. And in fact, I had no idea. Under Biden, listen to this, he imported, just in New York City alone, 1 million Muslims. Just in 4 years, 1 million Muslims. There are now almost as many. Remember, New York City, historically, the saying was, there are more Jews in New York City than any other city in the world except Tel Aviv. Even more than in Jerusalem, even more than, name your other Israeli city. So it was always known to have a very strong Jewish population. In 4 years, Biden now has essentially brought in almost as many Muslims as there are Jews. Now, my point being, a lot of these foreign-born voters, many of them illegals, many of them non-citizens, voted for Mamdani. There's no question that you have a lot of these illegals who were brought in by Biden because there's no voter ID laws. They can use mail-in balloting. They can use ballot harvesting, ballot trafficking. This is what's propping up the Democratic Party. If there's an honest election, I don't think the Democrats can win. So Trump's argument is, let's end the filibuster, pass election integrity laws, in other words, end voter fraud, end it, ban it, make it illegal. And he goes, the Democrats won't take back anything. And in fact, it will be hard for them to win an election for a generation to come. So he's basically saying, look, who's going to strike? Here, he's not using this analogy. But basically, if you sat down with him, let's say in a living room, so you would say, you're basically saying we're dealing with Hitler. Don't make a deal with Hitler. You can't trust anything this guy signs. He's determined to go to war. You're saying hit him before he hits us. In other words, the Democrats are determined to blow up the filibuster. They're going to go to war. So either we hit them before they hit us, or else they're going to hit us and we'll never get a chance to hit them back. And that's basically Trump's thinking. So there you have it. My honest opinion, Derek, I think if they end the filibuster, especially if the economy comes back, the Republicans are not just going to hold the House. I think they're going to gain a lot, maybe another 15, 20 seats in the House. They're going to expand in the Senate. And I think Trump is going to have the most spectacular, successful presidency in the history of the United States. But if this continues the way it's been, where it's shutdown after shutdown, resistance after resistance, as Trump said, it's a slog. It's a tough slog. It's constant obstruction, constant paralysis, constant blocking and freezing and keeping the Republicans unable to do anything. Then who knows? With the way they rig elections, you look at Mamdani. I mean, hell, they stole it from Cuomo. I mean, right underneath his nose. They went to the establishment Democrats and they stole an election from the Democrats. You know, the more old guard. I mean, these people are out of control. So, you know, you look at California, you look at Oregon, you look at Illinois, you look at Chicago, you look at Philadelphia, you look at New York, frankly, you look at Boston. Elections are very dirty. Very dirty, a lot of electoral corruption. So I've always said this, to survive as a country, we have to have clean elections. If we don't, it's over. It's over. Derek, thank you very much for that call. 617-266-6868 is the number. Again, agree, disagree. Now, I just want to read to you what Trump said, okay? He did a back and forth. And then with reporters. And the reporters were saying, well, why are you really pushing now Republicans to end the filibuster? And look, this is what he said. I'm just going to paraphrase because he gave a long answer. He said, look, yeah, for a long time, he goes, I was in favor of the filibuster. He goes, of course I was. But he says the Democrats today are not the Democrats of yesterday. These are crazy lunatics that we're dealing with. And he goes, quote, most of you will admit, talking out of the press corps, that the Democrats are going to end the filibuster. So why aren't we doing it? And I think only a foolish person would be against that, meaning Thune, especially when you realize that these are crazed people. These people are absolutely crazy. Trump derangement syndrome. And I am totally in favor of terminating the filibuster. And then they say, well, but that would be you. That wouldn't be the Democrats. Then the Democrats could do anything they want, and you guys would be the ones who handed them the key to the kingdom. And he said, look, we have to end the filibuster. And then look what we can pass. And I'm just quoting now directly. Voter ID laws. No more mail-in voting. No more cash bail. In other words, ending no cash bail. Crime. It would improve crime significantly. I mean, it would improve fighting crime significantly. Ending no cash bail. No men and women's sports. No welfare for illegals. You could go on and on. He goes, I could give you 2 pages worth. He goes, but we can't pass anything because you can't deal with these Democrats. They're really irrational. They really are. So his argument is, yeah, sure, if you had an honest Democratic Party and an honest Republican Party, traditional parties, of course you keep the filibuster. But when your enemy is telling you that they're going to invoke the nuclear option and end the filibuster, terminate it, and then destroy the United States of America as we know it, then according to Trump, you're crazy. It's almost a form of unilateral surrender. So we should end the filibuster and make sure the Democrats can never steal another election again. And this way, the country has a chance. Agree, disagree. Dave in Vermont. Thanks for holding, Dave, and welcome.
Bonjour, Jeff.
Bonjour. How are you, my French friend?
Oh, good. Hey, I've been thinking. I've had a vision listening to about Chuck maybe losing his position and everything. A vision came to my mind. I can see it now. Chucky's Cheeseburgers, world famous with dogs, wild animals, and gastrointestinal doctors everywhere.
Dave, I got to ask you, my friend, are you shocked that the Democrats have completely capitulated? And that Trump he whipped them. He broke them. 40 days of all of this they put the country through, and in the end, it was all for nothing. They got nothing, and It was all for nothing. In other words, were you surprised that the Republicans finally held the line?
I'm a little bit surprised at that, but the Democrats did get something. They got a hell of a stain on their name right now. And that's, I think, if we can, I didn't want to get rid of the filibuster before, but now I changed my mind. I think if we can do that, get rid of the filibuster, clean the garbage out of Congress for one thing, and the garbage out of the whole government, the more the better. And there are a lot of people in this country that would agree with that. And Democrats and independents alike would agree with, a lot of Democrats and independents alike would probably agree with getting rid of the garbage and having things run smoother. But if we could do that and concentrate on getting the economy back in shape where people makes it a lot more affordable for people to own a home, have health, put some gasoline in your car and fill your fridge again, I think you're going to change the minds of a lot of people. If the country can get running smooth again, get rid of the voter crap, the voter ID, get that in place, get rid of the mailing stuff so we can get the clean voting rolls, we'll be appeasing the American public, the American citizens, and not the aliens and imported people. That's my view.
Dave, Obama now is in private apparently going berserk. Reports are coming out that he is furious. He's furious at the Democrats who defected. He's furious at Schumer. He thought Schumer was a horrible leader, that he led them to disaster in the showdown with Trump, and that now he's petrified that Trump, and these are now almost verbatim now, apparently what Obama is saying behind closed doors, that Trump is going to, quote unquote, undo everything that I've done. And the centerpiece, his crown jewel, is Obamacare. And I think now the Democrats really sense the pressure on Obamacare, that if you take away all of these hundreds of billions of dollars, these corrupt subsidies, that Obamacare will now crash, collapse under its own weight, that clearly they lied to us. Everything they said it was going to do, it didn't do. And that Trump now is ready to replace it with a real viable alternative. If Obamacare goes down in flames, is Trump in many ways now undoing Obama's legacy? Will he be known in some ways as the anti-Obama? I'm just curious. Should Obama be worried? I guess that's what I'm asking you.
I would say, yeah, Obama should be worried. There's a lot of garbage and a lot of dirt that's going to be undug, and I think things are going to fall apart for them pretty quickly. And the thing is, we've got to make sure we hold the offices of both the House and the Senate. We've got to hold that, because if we lose that, we're on the way down. We won't regain it again, because we won't be able to get things passed that we want to get passed. We won't be able to advance the agenda that should be advanced for the benefit of the American citizens and not the aliens and illegals.
Dave, thank you very much for that call. I really appreciate it. I think that's another thing now that's really, you put it, they've been stained by this, right? And you're right. The Democrats, there's a massive stain on them. Moral stain, political stain. And one of the things is I think people are shocked. And just compare it to Obamacare. They're shocked that Democrats are fighting to give hundreds of billions of dollars in taxpayer-funded, quote-unquote, free health care to illegals. But if you notice under Obamacare, if you don't want Obamacare, if you say, no, I won't take health, I don't want to take health insurance coverage, you get fined. So an American citizen will get fined if that person doesn't want Obamacare, but they're going to give health care free to illegals. So U.S. citizens, we fine you. Illegals, you get it free. And notice, you don't get Obamacare for free. In fact, nobody gets their health care for free. We'll say, well, Jeff, I'm on Medicare. No, even then, you had to pay into Medicare. And if you want extra things in Medicare, you got to pay for that as well, as many of you know. So notice, the only group in the entire population that the Democrats really want to give, quote unquote, free health care to are illegals. Everything is for the illegals. Everything. And the American people now are saying, why is that? And now it's all like a light bulb. It's all, they're an anti-American party. They have no loyalty, no allegiance to the United States. All they care about is stealing elections. It's obvious. Keep the illegals here. Don't allow them to be deported, and give them all the welfare and freebies you can give them. Because then they will keep voting for you again and again and again. And Trump is saying no more. No more. Pass laws that end all welfare benefits to illegals. Ban it, completely ban it. Put up voter ID laws across the entire country, end mail-in balloting, end ballot harvesting, make it impossible for illegals to be able to vote. He goes, who's going to vote for the Democrats? They're a minority party. And by the way, one of the things he also wants, and he's right, pass a law in which in the U.S. Census, only citizens can be counted, not total population, meaning not illegals. Well, what do you think is going to happen? If that happens, if you just count citizens in the census, 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, the Schumer shutdown is over, or it will be, about the next probably 48 hours. 8 Democrats defected, voted with the Republicans last night to end the filibuster, to reopen the government. Now, there's still some procedural hurdles, parliamentary processes that need to play out, so it will take another day or two, but effectively, the shutdown is now done. Schumer has lost. Trump has won. Now, I don't want to play much of it because he's a very boring speaker. He's very dry, no emotion. But if you listen to the words, just the content, and I'm going to sum up most of it for you. The independent from Maine who caucuses with the Democrats, Angus King, he was one of the 8 that bolted from Schumer's ranks and voted to end the shutdown. He lays out very honestly, I have to say, I'm not a big fan of him, but on this he was honest. And he let the cat out of the bag. He said, and you could see on his face, like he's stunned. He can't believe it. It's like, fighting a boxer, and everybody says, oh, wait till the deep rounds. Oh, once you go into the deep rounds, that boxer always folds. Oh, no, can't go. Hey, past the 8th, 9th round, he's finished. So the Democrats were so confident that the Republicans would do what they always do. Capitulate, cave, start to concede, give up. But this time, it was a solid, unbreakable wall. And so Angus King, and this, by the way, this was the key moment. On Friday, it was a sign of desperation on the part of Schumer. Schumer says, okay, I'm willing now to reopen the government. I just want now one concession. Extend the Affordable Care Act subsidies for 1 year. Remember, they wanted a permanent extension. In other words, just keep funding it year after year. Schumer now says, no, I'll just do it for 1 year. Just 1 year. And that's it. And we'll return to this issue next year, and I'll sign off on any continuing resolution. Trump right away said to Thune, that's it. That's it. He's given up now the key part of his bargaining, his key demand. It's obvious. He's now in trouble. Cracks are forming. He's now retreating. Say no. Say no. You're getting nothing. You're going to get no extension. Not for a day, not for a month, not for a year, ever. And when the Republicans voted against that 1 year extension, Schumer knew the game was up. Listen now to Angus King. Roll cut 7, Mike.
And it was our judgment, after 6 weeks, going on 7 weeks of this shutdown, that path wasn't working. The test was last week when the majority leader put forward a proposal that was pretty simple, straightforward, 1-year extension of the tax credits. It was met with universal opposition in the Republican caucus. It wasn't going to happen. So the question before us, before those of us here who decided to vote yes tonight, the question was, does the shutdown further the goal of achieving some needed support for the extension of the tax credits? Our judgment was that it would not produce that result. And the evidence for that is almost 7 weeks of fruitless attempts to make that happen.
In other words, it went on 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 7 weeks. And he's like, they're just not bending. And so they're like, they're just not going to bend. It begins to dawn on them, like, they're not caving like they always cave. And then, listen to this. Here's Angus King. Roll cut 7-8. 7A, forgive me, 7A, Mike.
Would it change in a week or another week or after Thanksgiving or Christmas? And there's no evidence that it would. What there is evidence of is the harm that the shutdown is doing to the country. What it's doing to millions of federal workers, but also what it's doing to tens of millions of recipients of SNAP. This is a true crisis for those individuals.
In other words, what he's saying is, Trump told them, take it to Christmas. I don't care. Take it to Thanksgiving. I don't care. Take it to Christmas. I don't care. Do you want take it into the new year? I don't care. Because I'm going to blame you. And when people start going hungry, I'm going to blame you. And when people can't go to Thanksgiving dinner because all the airlines are shut down and all the flights have been canceled, I'm going to blame you. And if, God forbid, a plane falls out of the sky or there's a collision, I'm going to blame you. And so they were like lobsters in a pot. And Trump just kept boiling it and boiling it and boiling it and boiling it. And that's why, so in the end, Angus King says, well, we got to vote on extending the Obamacare subsidies. As if, like, somehow that's kind of a moral victory. And he even says it. He goes, are the Republicans going to vote for it? No. Are they going to vote for it in the House? No. In the Senate? No. But at least we're, quote, pushing the conversation forward. Basically, you got nothing. 617-266-6868. Lines are loaded. Joe in Hull. Thanks for holding, Joe, and welcome.
Jeff, how you doing? I love your show.
Thank you, Joe.
Here's the issue that we're not really talking about. The Republicans have been letting us down and doing the same old nothing the whole time they've been in. Mike Johnson promised us in the spring that that CR that they passed, which is Biden's budget and Nancy Pelosi's budget, funds all the things that we hate. That would be the last one. We'd do 12 appropriations bills, and we would have them ready by summer. By summer, when his Republicans wouldn't revote for a CR, he promised in the fall that they would be done, regular order, that they would have the budget all done, a Trump budget that funds his agenda. But the CR that they voted on today is Biden's budget, passed by him and Pelosi in 22. And that's the one that's going to be continued. So it's all his funding priorities. And secondly, when we talk about ending the filibuster, number one, like you said, they don't have a vote, so that wouldn't happen. But anyways, my main point was that the Obamacare subsidies, what they do. My wife works for an emergency room, and if we say we're not going to give them to the insurance companies, then the insurance companies won't pay the hospitals. But we have a law that says if somebody walks into the emergency room, my wife has to save them. She has to. She can't let them die on the steps. So all the bills for the tests, the nurse that was paid, the doctor that was paid, they have to be paid out of the hospital's budget, and the hospital will close because the hospital will not be reimbursed because there is no insurance. So because of that reason, the healthcare system will collapse without the Obamacare subsidies unless for the 15 years they've been telling us the Republicans will actually pass a new health care plan, which by saying that we're just going to give the money to the people to decide what they're going to do with it, which is their latest proposal, means nothing because if the insurance companies don't get the money, they won't pay the bills. The people aren't going to go in and pay $20,000 for their tests and life-saving behavior, like my wife said, can be giving you. They're not going to let you get a nose job, but it can be giving you high blood pressure medication, so they don't have to do $40,000 open heart surgery on you in 6 months.
Well, yeah, so, Joe, you make a lot of points. Look, if they're going to do Trump's plan, which is this, really the plan of this guy, Bill Cassidy. He's a senator from Louisiana, Republican. He's a doctor. It's going to be more than just giving people money into their health savings accounts. It's going to be a comprehensive healthcare reform plan that's going to overturn and replace Obamacare. So obviously we don't want hospitals going bankrupt. We can't afford to have hospitals going bankrupt. So no, they will take care of it. They should take care of it. Joe, look, I want to go back to your initial point. You're completely right about Mini Mike. You're right. I remember distinctly. Mini Mike said in the summer, this is it. Last CR, no more CRs. And then fall. This is it. I'm telling you, no more CRs. And now they've got a CR until January 31st of next year. And you're completely right. This is all Biden-level funding. Now, what Mini Mike is saying, this is what he says, is that they're going to pass all 12 appropriations bills by the end of January, and that they're going to cut a lot of the Biden spending, especially under COVID and the pandemic, where, I mean, they jacked up the subsidies, they jacked up the tax credits. They put about 15 million people on food stamps, just under Biden alone. It was 27 million people on food stamps. By the time Biden was done, it was 42 million. So they say that they're going to start getting all these people off of food stamps. They're going to go back to pre-pandemic spending. I'll believe it when I see it. But so, look, yeah, I mean, Joe, this is Trump's problem. John Thune is a swamp creature. Mini Mike is a swamp creature. Most of the Republicans in Congress are swamp creatures. And let me be even more honest with you, Joe. It's an open secret on Capitol Hill. Except for a handful of members of Congress. And I mean, I'm talking two hands. Okay? Two hands. 5 in the House, maybe 5 in the Senate. The 95% of the Republican Party in Congress can't stand Trump. Publicly, yeah, of course, they're for him. They love him. Privately, they hate him. They want him to go away. They literally want him to just run out the clock, have him leave, and replace him with a typical establishment globalist Republican. Let me just give you an example. Congressman Mike Lawler from New York. Okay, big mouth. He's always on TV. A big rhino. He was caught, mic after mic, hot mic after hot mic, mocking Trump. This was before Trump was reelected in 2024. He's crazy. He's a buffoon. He's a lunatic. You know, he should never be allowed to come back to power. After January 6th, he should be arrested. Who can take this guy seriously? Trump wins in November 2024. By the way, wins Lawler's district big. So now his voters love Trump. Suddenly, Lawler comes out. Trump's a great man. Great president. We got to back him. We got to support him. I've got Trump's back. Okay? This is what Trump deals with on a daily basis. That's why, unlike others, I always cut him some slack. Because I'm like, you don't know what he's dealing with Judases every single day. Literally, who speak out of both sides of their mouth. To his face, yeah, I'm with you, Mr. President. Behind his back, they're looking to sabotage him. So you're completely right, Joe. The swamp is far from being dead. But Trump now keeps pressuring Thune. He keeps pressuring Mini Mike Johnson. And hopefully we're going to see some appropriations bills where they actually cut spending, where they actually get people off of welfare, where they get illegals off of the food stamp rolls. And yes, where they finally repeal and replace Obamacare. Like, it's been 15 years they've been promising to do this. Do it. So, Joe, in a nutshell, I hear you, and I feel sorry for Trump. Because I'm telling you, he's surrounded by traitors in suits and who blow kisses in his ear, but are looking to shank him at every turn. Joe, thank you very much for that call. 617-266-6868. And by the way, they use the excuse of the filibuster. Whenever Trump, for example, Trump says, well, let's pass a national voter ID law. We can't do it. Why not? The filibuster. We just can't get 60 votes. The Democrats, they'll never go for it. See, that, by the way, John Thune is a pure swamp creature. Pure swamp creature. If anything, even more of a swamp creature and even more corrupt than Mini Mike Johnson. And who's standing up? Notice, now he stands up to Trump. When Trump says, look, guys, let's end this filibuster and let's pass what I campaigned on. Suddenly, oh no, over my dead body. Suddenly, John Thune, he'll fight you to the death. Because ultimately, he's of the swamp, by the swamp, for the swamp. So that's why Trump is saying, no, end the filibuster, and then I want to have Republicans on the record. National voter ID law, up or down? And mail-in balloting, up or down? And all welfare federal benefits to illegals, up or down? And let's see where Republicans really stand. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, double-barreled question. Should we end the filibuster? Trump says yes. Honestly, I've now come around. Some Republicans still say no. Most importantly, what say you? And the shutdown is effectively now over, and the Democrats have caved. 617-266-6868 is the number. Mike in Long Island. Thanks for holding, Mike, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. I have one question. Can the Republicans end the filibuster to pass the laws they need to save America, then also pass a law making the filibuster permanent?
Well, you can't make the filibuster permanent. I mean, they could pass a law to restore, like the 60 vote. In other words, pass the MAGA agenda and then say, okay, we passed Trump's campaign platform, right? We passed all of the issues he ran on, and then let's put it back to 60 votes. They could do that, but the Democrats would then come back and say, well, the stone was broken. So you guys, you invoked the nuclear option. You took it from 60 to 51. Now you put it back up to 60. Well, now we're going to take it back to 51. And maybe we'll put it up to 60 or not. So in other words, it's like if they do the nuclear option, in theory, you're right. But the Democrats, once they come back, they're going to end the filibuster. Should they ever come back. My hope and prayer, honestly, is that they end the filibuster, pass voting reform, the most of all of it, that's the most important. Clean elections, election integrity laws, clean up our voting system and our voting rolls. And maybe then the Democrats will lose election after election after election and then realize, you know what, let's become moderates again. this whole open borders, illegal immigration experiment that we tried has blown up in our face. In other words, force the Democrats to win an honest election. And if they have to, because if they have to win an honest election, they actually have to cater to the American people, to American citizens, not to illegals. So that means they got to be responsive to American citizens, which means they got to come up with good policies. So that's what I'm hoping. But look, just for the record, Thune has said no. Other Republicans in the Senate, Lisa Murkowski has said no. Susan Collins has said no. Mitch McConnell obviously has said no. Rand Paul, I believe, has said no. So they don't have the votes right now. Trump is hoping to put pressure on them, that maybe some of them will change their mind. But as things stand right now, they do not have 51 votes to end the filibuster. Okay, let's go to Michelle in Weymouth. Thanks for holding, Michelle, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. It's Rochelle. But that's
Rochelle,
okay.
I'm so... You see what I got to deal with here? Look at this. Rochelle, and they have Michelle up on the board. That's just... Anyway, but according to Mike, I'm the bad guy. According to Mike, I'm the one who's unprofessional. All right, but go ahead, Rochelle. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I agree with Trump. If we could get rid of the filibuster, I think that would be great. But, we have rhinos, and that's a reality that we're dealing with right now. I have two alternatives for what we could do. Either bring back the old filibuster where you have to stand there, you have to, not eat or drink anything for 24 hours, and you have to stand there for, 10 or 15 or 24 hours and give an endless speech. I mean, they couldn't do to this country what they just did if they had to do that, that we would never see another long shutdown like this if they had to do that. And then my second alternative would be invoke the nuclear option, do away with it temporarily, as the Democrats did in 2014. Just do away with it temporarily for the sole purpose of electoral reform, such as, voter ID, make, no more voter season, no more electoral season, bring it back to one election day.
Oh, yeah, one-day voting. Sorry, Rochelle, another thing Trump is pushing is one-day voting. You're right, not this, they vote for 60 days, early voting before the election, before election day. Rochelle, but just to go back to your first point, so you're saying if there's going to be a government shutdown, force them to all sit in the chamber. No food, no water. And basically, okay, you're going to shut the government down. Fine. Then you got to stay there in the chamber. No water, no food. I guess we'll give them a bathroom break, but that's about it. And until you guys hash out a way to keep the government funded, correct?
Have to stand there and make an endless speech for 24 hours or something, or as long as they possibly can. How long would they be able to keep that up? You know what I'm saying?
Well, no food and no water, Michelle, I'm done in 24 hours. I'm just speaking for me now. I don't know people. I mean, could you go more than 24 hours without food and water?
No, I don't think so, but that's the point. That's the point.
No, I agree. I'm just, and if you throw in the no bathroom break, if you say no, because you guys may start drinking water from the sink in the bathroom or something. So you say no bathroom break. Well, then you've really got them by the tonsils, by the short hairs.
Well, I mean, if they're going to stand up and do a speech, an endless speech, that.
No, I'm with you. In other words, what they typically do when they do a filibuster, they'll just speak and speak and speak. But even then, they can eat, they can drink water, they can temporarily pass the baton off to another senator.